Someone's waiting to get in. Oh, that's Max. I'll just tell him 1 second.
There we go. We got 5 minutes. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey, Gabe.
Hello. Hello. Ooh, Mr. Russo got new glasses. I like those. Those are cool. All right, are we on? Okay.
We're double checking to make sure we're on Facebook. We good?
I heard her say something, but I didn't quite catch what it was.
We good? Okay. Okay, we're ready to roll. I'm going to call this special meeting of the Library Board of Trustees on August 17th to order. Ms. Carlisle, Ms. Crenshaw,
Present.
Ms. Llewellyn, Mr. Gerbach,
Here.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Here.
Mr. Ruza,
Here.
Mr. Toracchio.
Here.
I certify that the notification of this meeting of the Board of Library Trustees has been made.
Okay, I was hoping that we would be coming to you tonight to ask you to approve an LOI with the Coventry Peace Campus, Inc. as one entity, and unfortunately, that is not the case. We received about an hour ago, maybe less than that, a response to our final offer, and it was redlined throughout with many changes that we find unacceptable. For instance, they want to cut the rent, the very bottom base rent that we provided for them with deferment during COVID. They wanted to cut that amount by 75% and not be deferred, not pay the deferred amount. They wanted to start paying at some unverifiable trigger that they said was their ability to pay, and we don't have any way to verify that. I don't understand how we can prove their feasibility to pay that, so I don't think that's something that we can agree upon. The utilities transferred into their name. They want us to continue to pay them and pay us back, and I don't understand that because that seems to be just a bookkeeping thing, and if they can't write their own checks, that's very disappointing. They want the option to convert the term to not be based on them meeting our criteria, but based upon if they don't like our criteria, then they go directly into mediation, and we think that would be an unnecessary expense, and that's not acceptable to us. The deadline for getting this LOI signed was September 15th. That was 2 days ago. We are now behind schedule.
August 15th.
And they're, August 15th. And they have until the end of this month with their holdover. So again, we're backing up to 14 days till a deadline that's already passed. And I must say that in the last 2 months, we've spent more than 20 hours in negotiations, either working on the project or in actual discussions with them. And we have cut everything back to the most agreeable terms we could possibly give them, while still being responsible landlords. So I will ask that we move to adjourn this meeting, and we hope to call another special meeting to approve an agreement, but unfortunately, we cannot recommend that at this time.
Hey, Anthony, can you give us your view on where this thing has gone in the last few days?
Sure. The last few days, I mean, I guess I'll go back to last week. The last week is when we walked through with the tenant and their counsel, the LOI as it stood, with the kind of the open outstanding items. And then the plan was to be tying up these loose ends. Again, it was, by the 15th was kind of the date in the most recent LOI that we're trying to keep on a time track. Bumped that to today, so that way we can have everything in front of us before the library board met. And like Nancy said, we received that, but there was, going back and forth with the reserve accounting and the kind of that parallel track of some financial component to the existing leases that have expired in June and that they're in holdover status. Wrapping that up and getting on the same page is in connection with putting these open issues to bed. And I feel like we did the former part. And so, we can kind of just turn our attention back to the LOI. And based on the outcome of that, it should, it kind of informs the library's approach to the base rent amount, the maintenance responsibilities, and and everything else. So I guess my takeaway from it is that, that we're not here talking about the final terms of an approved LOI agreed to by both parties. And there's still a little bit of meat left on the bone, because the largest financial components would be the base rent, and then the, I guess, utilities as well. Utilities, not to dive too far in, it's a dispute over form more than substance. The agreement from the tenants to be financially responsible for the utilities is in here. That's the big step. How it's paid for, whether the utilities transfer in name, who's making the real-time payments, the administrative burden, all of that stuff we kind of went backwards on that. And so we can deal with it. We can draft the appropriate provisions for any one of these things. Some of it is we need to agree on a number. And I can't advise on that part of it. But once we do get those provisions that are still outstanding that Nancy highlighted, if we're going to have an agreement between landlord and tenant, that still has to happen. Then we can paper it.
So we haven't seen the red line, but were you surprised at the extent of the markup?
That's a question for me.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess I was surprised at when we left the meeting last week, we didn't have that final rent amount. And I take that back, because we did follow up to say that it was, going to be $2,000 per monthly. And so I guess I was surprised to see that the $2,000 deferred from go through the to be determined COVID period that we would be defining as well. That was kind of the offer. And so now it's like, well, put all that aside. Instead, it's just this much lower number. And again, go back to that parallel track, the library is everything that's coming off on the tenant side as we're, overlaying the leases with all of these expenses and the library concessions along the way. There's a significant amount expended by the library that is not being recouped here. And so under these existing leases that have since expired. So now looking forward, we got to take care of the real-time obligations, but it's also an opportunity for the library to, take everything into account and, like I said, inform that approach. So that was a little surprising. And I guess I also thought that we were past the utilities portion too, that in the most recent LOI we had, and even what we discussed most recently was that the utilities would be transferred to tenant's name as soon as possible after go, but no later than October 1st. And again, September 1st that was supposed to be at go. October. So, I mean, maybe even practically speaking, that may be difficult, but the point is as soon as possible after the commencement date. And that's been stricken for when the tenants exercise their option to convert to a longer lease. which is not even guaranteed. So like, I mean, we could draft around that, we can tweak, or if there's no option to convert exercise then, but even so, it's decidedly different on that part.
So the utilities thing, I think, yeah, that's it seems like kind of a step in the wrong direction. But like the monthly rent, you know, I understand. Maybe Debbie, you can explain this best, or Nancy. The monthly rent of the $2,000 that was in our initial proposal, that was for what exactly? Just like shared expenses, but can you just kind of go through what those are?
That was not in our initial proposal. Our initial proposal was for them to do a payback of the
Right.
reserve amount. So that was
Sorry, but
that was $25,000 to get them on the way to paying us back.
right.
This rent amount, we can do with it what we want. It is a rent amount. The way we came up with the number was, to be fair to them, a division of 3 years of rent into that make whole number, which is about 85,000. So 3 years times 2,000, that would get us to 75. Plus, let me just say, we have another tenant across the street that rents a far less square footage, and they pay $2,700 a month rent. And we're talking about a whole building with 7 tenants, and they're squawking about this. So
I guess on that rent point, to kind of dovetail what Nancy's saying, I mean, again, back to the numbers here and the library side, the tenant side, and what has been adding up over these couple of years. I mean, the position that the library is in currently, based on the last 2 years of paying for the building for the tenants to be there, is based on the extreme discount that the tenants have been paying for rent, which, you know, right, the rent has been estimated to be kind of at that utilities mark, and that's why it's kind of at a break even. And then the other items that are landlord tenant responsibility are in that lease. If we are overlaying that lease on the expenses now, there's a significant amount that the library is eating here, and it's because of how these previous leases have, you know, and other library concessions, like all of the startup costs and other things to get the tenants off on the right foot and hit the ground running 2 years ago. Now we're talking about the lease moving forward, and so Max, to your point, yes, the rent is it is simply that. It is a rent. And it is an opportunity for the library, for an asset of its that is expended a significant amount of money into, and also has continuing obligations and financial obligations to the project.
we will continue to
I mean,
build.
I'm not going to say, I mean, the rent amount, it can go for, you know, it's unrestricted in that regard.
So I think we
Understood.
should.
Thank you. That was just my
honestly-
question.
Okay, so I think we should adjourn. We have a lot to discuss. And I think we're entering into the realm of negotiation, which should be done amongst ourselves. And we can continue this conversation with the real estate committee, with the whole board as you see fit. But obviously it was a disappointing day, and we just have to regroup and figure out what we're gonna do.
Anthony, can you send us the markup, the latest markup?
Sure. Yep.
Thank you. I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Agamoto.
Yes.
Mr. Brusa,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
We're adjourned at 6:50. We'll
Thanks,
be in
everybody.
touch.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Well, we got it out there.
Patiently.
I don't know what to do.